Good morning and hello from North Carolina. This is our 12th live session. I can't believe that I've done 12 of these already. So our plan is to go live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to share industry news from the previous week. If you are joining us live, please drop a comment below so that we know that you are here and joining us. If you are team replay, also drop a comment, and also feel free to ask any questions as they come up. If you guys have topics that you'd like me to dig into, please feel free to share that in the comments below. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rosalinda Cruz, and I am the founder and chief business development officer of the ACEWOR Collective, where we help underrepresented leaders in the fashion industry with strategic planning and advising. Our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive, sustainable fashion industry by filling in the leadership and ownership gaps within the apparel supply chain. So for those of you who are joining for the first time, one of the things that I try to do during these lives is reconcile my love of the fashion, of fashion and retail, and reconcile my love for those two things with my values around sustainability and diversity and inclusion. Because oftentimes it feels like those things are in conflict. So another thing that I try to do on these lives is also advocate for supply change and raise buyer awareness. So I love a good agenda. And so one of the things that I try to do is stick to a rough agenda where I go through North Carolina news, because North Carolina is one of the #1 textile producing states in the US. So we have a lot of great industry news coming out of the state. Touch on product, service, workforce, any epiphanies, and also the green carpet. So let's get into it. Oh man. So one, I'm probably going to have to take a sip of my water soon. I did not set my timer, so I'm going to do that now. I want to make sure that we are sticking sort of to this 30-minute time frame for the most part. But last week we didn't have a live session. Last week was just like a calamity of errors between switching internet providers and not feeling so great, and I was having a little argument with myself that morning around whether or not I should do the live, and I was like, no, just take the time that you need. I was like, all of these things are happening for a reason, so don't fight it. So in any case, so this week is our 12th episode. So some of the news that I'm going to cover this week was actually also intended to be shared last week. It's still sort of new news, so it feels relevant to still share some of that information. All right, announcements. So one, I am hosting the executive roundtable tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Yes, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've talked about this a few times, but there is a core group of executives that represent the various links throughout the apparel value chain, and we come together on a quarterly basis and just reflect whether it's on the previous year, the previous quarter, and also share insight that could help propel our businesses for the following year and quarter. So tomorrow we're going to be reflecting on 2021 and preparing for 2022. So I'm really excited about that. I've also started a wait list for the Leader Lab on my website. So please, if you are interested in joining a Leader Lab, go to the website, aceworkcollective.com. I'll be sure to drop that also in the comments for you guys. And what else? I guess we're going to move into North Carolina news. I'm going to take a sip of my water first. How about that? All right. Big gulp. Okay, so North Carolina news. The exhibit Dressing the Abbey is going to be closing January 17th, which I guess that's, oh, is that today? That was yesterday, huh? Doggone it. Well, that was a bit of last week's news. So hopefully those of you who are in North Carolina did get to catch that exhibit. The other thing that I wanted to share in North Carolina news is that applications for the 2022 Environmental Awards are now open. That is being hosted by the Raleigh Environmental Stewardship Award. Again, if you are interested in that, please sign up for the show notes, and I will share the link for that information with you. In industry news, and this is also a little bit of Carolina news too, but the Carolina Textile District is offering an industrial sewing boot camp, which is really exciting. They offer a lot of trainings around industrial sewing, and actually have partnered with some community college to offer those trainings. So if you are interested in learning more about the industrial sewing boot camp, contact Carolina Textile District. I will also share those links in the show notes as well. And this week is NRF, right? National Retail Federation's big show. And I just skipped around a little bit. I'm going to come back to that point in just one second. But the other big thing that's happening in the industry is that Fashion Week is coming up, right? So that's, I can't remember what the date is. I think it's like February 11th or 17th. In any case, a lot of people are debating, right, whether or not for this to continue to be an in-person event, or if it's going to be virtual or a hybrid event. Obviously, this is a familiar dilemma when we go back to 2020. So hopefully they will figure that out. I personally really enjoy the hybrid option as well as the virtual option. I feel like you're able to get that information out to a larger audience. So that's something that I really appreciate about those virtual and hybrid events. Seek City, it's a platform on the metaverse, and there was a scandal, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. Maybe scandal is too strong of a word, but H&M apparently was marked as opening a store there, and they're not, so we're just clearing that up. But it's interesting, again, to see how this metaverse is taking shape, and what the role the fashion industry is playing in that. Also, New York is looking to pass a Fashion Sustainability Act. I will also share a link about that in the show notes. But there was an article in the New York Times, not last week, but the week before. If you didn't read that article, I will be sharing that link so you can learn a little bit more about that. And also American Giant, they doubled down on their made in the USA product during the pandemic. So they actually, prior to all of the impact on the supply chain, they actually decided that they were going to be investing more in local manufacturing. And I just according to some of the information and articles I've read, that actually positioned them for success, because once all of these impacts took place and impacted the supply chain, they were actually able to be a lot more nimble than some of their counterparts, because of the proximity of their supply chain and the relationships they had built with these local manufacturing facilities. So, yay! We'll chalk up another win for manufacturing in the U.S. Macy's also announced that they're going to be closing more stores this year. I don't know if they actually came out with that actual list. I know that when they announced the store closures, I believe they closed about 25 to date. But initially, when they released the news that they were going to be closing stores, there was a master list. So I'm curious to see if they're sticking to that, or if that's been modified in any way, since it's been quite some time since they made that announcement. Fashion innovation. Fashion Innovation and Spring Studios, they are extending their partnership through 2022, which was really great. They were able to make a lot of impact with their work in 2021, and I'm excited to see that they are going to be continuing that into 2020. So, yay for them. NRF, like I said, the big show is happening right now in New York City at the Javits Center. That's January 16th through the 18th. They actually already had some pretty strict protocol in place just to ensure safety, but with the latest news around COVID, they tightened that up a little bit more. But one of the things that was interesting was that last week, right before, or I guess as people were traveling to New York City, Target and SAS decided to pull out of NRF, and these were actually big partners to NRF, and they opted to host virtual events instead. Obviously, I am not there because I am here in North Carolina, but I am looking forward to hearing the recap from folks that I know that are there. So that's that for industry news. I'm going to take another sip of my water. It is really, I don't know why my throat is feeling really dry and scratchy. So I'm back. All right. Product news. So the spring product, month one of spring product is going to be dropping in February. The other thing that I wanted to share is that January is typically like a big sale month. Obviously, there is sort of the calm that hits retail after the holidays. People are probably doing a lot of cocooning and getting cozy at home, but stores are looking to move through their inventory to make room for a new season that's coming and hitting next month. So typically in the industry, Martin Luther King weekend is a big sale weekend. So if you are in the market for some sweaters, now this is usually the time of year that I buy all of my sweaters. It can be a little bit of a crapshoot, right? Because it's, whatever's left over from the season. So you may not always get the style, size, or color that you want, but it's nice to, like I said, you often get deals that are at least 50% off of original retail prices, which is great, and even more. In product news as well. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, this is all of a sudden right now that people are kind of dialing things back, right? People started going back to workplaces, doing more in-person meetings, but now the topic of Zoom dressing came up. And it's interesting because Fast Company actually came out with an article where they are taking a deeper look at what they're calling the casualization of workwear, or as some people call it, kind of like the top-down dressing, right? Actually, I guess maybe it should be the top-down dressing or bottom-up dressing, right? Because you're only seeing people's top halves. But in any case, but as a result, that is a huge category. And I didn't look at all of the numbers for 2021, but Edited is one of my go-to platforms for data regarding styles entering the market and what categories are selling well. But I'm curious to see what that looked like over the year, but that is also starting to peak again. I feel like tops have always been, a top selling category anyways, but I'm curious to see like what that percent increase is from month to month, season to season, and that sort of thing. Also, another big announcement, and I think this came out last week, maybe again the week before, who knows? But Balenciaga, they are doing a collaboration, first of its kind, but collaborating with the Yeezy Gap collection. So they are going to be launching their collection later this year. Their first drop is actually going to be in June. So June 2020, look for a drop of that product. And that, again, is a collaboration between Balenciaga and Yeezy Gap collection. So it's a nice little trifecta of brands there between Yeezy Gap and Balenciaga. Also, another great article that came out of the New York Times, but they actually had an article that talked about food labels for clothes. Like, what would it mean if the labeling on clothes looked like food labels, right? So people had a better understanding of what went into making their clothes, and I thought that was really interesting. I also want to give a little shout out to my friends at TS Designs, because they actually, for the longest time, actually had a similar type of label that they included on a lot of their t-shirts, just to show their transparent supply chain and speak to the values and quality that goes into producing their shirts. So apparently that is trending. So yay. In service news. So service news, I actually last week I managed to get out a little newsletter. But one of the things that I had mentioned, and I did mention also as I was talking about product, is that January is a slow selling time of year for a lot of businesses. A lot of them I already listed, but I also feel like if you are shopping, I always want to urge people to shop small and shop local. I feel like those businesses are the ones who could benefit the most, right, from any dollar spent. So I always like to make a plug for that. And the other thing that I also wanted to share, this was I had seen this on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and I thought that this was really, really interesting. And I really like this, but there's a jewelry company called I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's Borg Jewelry. And the owner's name is Ariel Nicole. And one of the things that I really liked is that they sort of stepped away from promoting their product to also speak about their values. And one of the messages that they were putting out there is just the importance of not staying in spaces that you don't feel connected with. So I know that they, one of the things that she was doing was talking about some of her personal and life experiences. I won't go into details about that, but she was experiencing a little bit of a backlash as a result of that, and was speaking out about it and comfortable saying, "Hey, listen, like I'm not for everyone, right? And if this isn't what you're interested in hearing, I'm okay with you, right? Not being a part of this space." So I thought that that was a bold and brave move. I always really like it when people, speak up, right, when it comes to their values, because it's not always hard to do. So in workforce news, again, this is a slow time of year. Retail, workers and those in the fashion industry are coming out of, right, the busiest time of year, that being the holiday season. And even though January is a quiet time of year in terms of sales, it is still a busy time of year because you still have a lot of big things happening, right? So in January, I mentioned the NRF, right? The big show is happening this week. Next week is the Outdoor Retailer Show. February, you have a market coming up for the autumn-winter season, 2022 autumn-winter season. And then what else? Oh, and also January is typically inventory time, and you have a big sale month. So we are asking a lot of our workforce. So I just want to remind people to take the time and really thank your team, and those who support this work. So the other thing that I wanted to say too, just as it relates to the workforce, is that retail and hospitality have been noted as the top sectors being left. And this is according to Karen Kimbrough, who is LinkedIn's chief economist. She did an interview with 60 Minutes, I believe, last week, maybe the week before. It's all blurring together. But so I think that for those reasons, it is even more important that we express our gratitude for our workforce, and again, continue to think differently about what work looks like, right? So now we move to the green carpet. Yes. So this is, and I'm debating on whether or not I should move this to the top of the segment. But the green carpet is really where I take a deep dive and talk about brands, concepts, and processes that are being called to the proverbial carpet. And again, want to acknowledge that, within the fashion industry, there are a lot of ethical dilemmas, right? And there is infighting that happens between, scholars and other experts and consumers, and you name it, right? So one of the things that I try to do, and this is I've always done this, but I always try to hold space for those difficult conversations, right? And I think that when we are able to have honest conversation, we are actually setting the conditions for innovation, right? So I think that beautiful and incredible things can happen through having difficult conversation. And having said that, one of the things that I have been actively practicing is sort of this art of calling people in versus calling them out. I know that sustainability and all the stuff circling around environmentalism and that sort of thing, those are hot button issues, and there are some really horrific things that are happening, right? And so I understand why that is often what people's response is, right? It's, it's calling people out, putting them on blast. But again, I think that, if you, by calling people in, you're not giving them a pass, right? You're still acknowledging that stuff, but you are allowing them to come to the table with their shoulders dropped, right? Because they're not coming, feeling like they are on the defensive, right? And really, again, setting those conditions for open dialogue. So again, this is something that I've been practicing. And Loretta Ross, who is a professor at Smith College, she did a TED Talk, and it was featured on NPR. Oh, I guess it's been a couple of months now. But she talks about right, cancel culture and the power of calling people in versus calling them out. So I want to thank and honor her for expanding my thinking around that. So in any case, all right. So I am not going to go into great detail about this stuff, but because we don't have a lot of time left, we are almost at the half-hour mark. But NFTs, and there's a lot of conversation that's swirling around NFTs, right? So non-fungible tokens, which is I guess people are questioning whether or not this is just another crypto craze that may be overcooked. And who knows? It may be. But one of the things that I did mention this in a couple episodes ago, but I do think that there is an opportunity with NFTs and emerging designers, especially those who are part of the BIPOC community, to be able to protect their intellectual property, and be able to monetize some of their design work, right? Because we know that oftentimes their designs are being either outright stolen, co-opted, uh, and the list goes on. So I think that there could be an opportunity to combat some of that, right, with NFTs. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that Imran Ahmed, who's the founder of BOF, but he actually, I follow him on social media. Obviously, I follow BOF, but on his personal Instagram account, he talked about his experiences and thoughts on inclusion and belonging in the fashion industry. I don't know why I'm getting all emotional over this, but this is a really difficult and emotional topic. But one of the things that he talks about is he talks about some of his experiences in the industry. And also how honesty can lead to real dialogue. And he doesn't believe, right, in this public call outs or shaming, right? And one of the things that he talks about is, right, he does share a story, and again, doesn't give details around the business or the people involved, and talks about how he brought this to the appropriate people's attention. And he specifically didn't want to give details because he doesn't believe in this public call out, right, or shaming. And the reason that he believes that is because it creates barriers to learning, and barriers to that willingness to change. So again, I thought that that was important to highlight here, especially in the green carpet, because as I mentioned, I am also practicing, right, the art of calling people in versus calling out. So that was really affirming for me. to hear him kind of just echo those same sentiments. And again, I feel like one of the things that I really appreciated about his post is that again, it didn't give anybody a pass, right? It did acknowledge, right, his experiences and what was painful about those experiences, and how frequently they happen. Um, but again, really acknowledging that depending on how that message is shared, it can create a barrier for learning. And again, that really makes this for people to change. So I just wanted to say thank you and share that, right? So another thing too is, oh man, I can't remember what the name of the company is, but there was a French brand. My goodness, but they actually they are being dragged, to be honest, right? But they are being called out because they apparently were in Mexico doing a photo shoot, and they were, according to some sources, paid an elderly indigenous woman to appear in their photo shoot for $10. And I know that there was a letter that was sent out by one of the executives in the company, really imploring, right, the press and the public not to go wild with this and to take down, just worried about the cancel culture, right? And trying to um, give some information around the reasoning for why this happened. Um, and again, I almost feel like this could be a great case study, right? For the calling people out versus calling people in, right? And I'm really curious to see how this continues to develop, right? Um, because while I don't necessarily support, right, the further exploitation of indigenous people, I also, in one sense, I feel like $10 for a photo shoot um, that is going to bring in well over $10 worth of business as a result of this, um, is it's a little tough to swallow. And yet $10 for that woman was a lot of money. So that was our 30-minute timer. So I'm curious to see how this gets reconciled. I haven't followed up on this recently, but it just really reminds me of the work that Gucci has been doing, right? They have been called out repeatedly for the cultural appropriations that takes place, like within the brand. But then they've been doing some really incredible work and put some programs in place to undo some of the impact that their previous business practices have had, and are really supporting more of the work of the BIPOC community, and taking an active part in the healing of those communities too. So hopefully I summed that up eloquently, and didn't do a disservice to their work. And again, like this, their programs have been in existence just for a couple of years, um, and I'm really interested to see, to look back, right, in 5 years, and to be able to see the impact that they've made. Other thing, this is sort of the last bit of green carpet news, but this actually, I just saw this last night and I was like, oh boy, I got to put this down. But H&M they are being called out on social media about their greenwashing tactics. I don't know. I believe maybe recently they just came out with a new campaign that highlights their sustainable product, and they are being called out by consumers and advocates. And apparently, one of the social media managers, I believe it was actually in Germany, responded to one of these greenwashing comments with the yawning emoji. And while that was really insensitive and really almost adding fuel to the flames, one of the things that again I feel like this highlights is that this call out, right? The calling people out isn't working, and apparently H&M is tired of it, so tired of it, right? That they're dropping yanni emojis. I don't know if yanni's an actual word, but I guess my other thing too is, and this is something that we're going to be kind of like diving into a little bit in the roundtable is right. There are some businesses that are actively greenwashing, right? They see this right as a marketing opportunity, um, and then there are also some businesses um, that are providing misinformation, right? Which is the intent is a little bit different, right, when it comes to greenwashing and misinformation. Um, but how can we again create the space to have these right these important conversations? And where's the onus, right? Is it on the brand? Is it on the individual? Um, is this where right where we need to bring legislation in place to help regulate some of these things? Is this where right that food label um, tag for clothing could come right could be beneficial here, right? Because you're demystifying what the clothing manufacturing process looks like and what practices you are using as a business. So a lot to dive into there, but I wanted to share that. And we are just about out of time. So I want to thank those of you who joined us on today's live. Um, a couple of things, right? So if you're interested in the Leader Lab, visit our website, aceworkcollective.com. Join the wait list for that. I'm excited to see our executives at tomorrow's executive roundtable. And we have, not this week, next week, we've got a newsletter coming up. So again, our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive sustainable fashion industry by filling in the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. If you are interested in helping us further our mission, please connect in with me. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week. And I will see you here next week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like I said, we go live every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I hope to see you there. Okay, bye.